Welcome to Backyard Oasis, a podcast designed by and for older adults living in the beautiful Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts and produced in the tech studios at Greenfield Community College in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Backyard Oasis reaches out to older adults who seek knowledge to help them live more thoughtfully, healthily, and happily, who hope to inspire others with their ideas, and who serve their communities in the interest of the greater good. We hope you join us frequently in our pleasant Backyard Oasis for wide-ranging conversations with a diversity of people who are growing older and want to talk about it. Welcome to Backyard Oasis. I'm Dennis Lee. I'm calling this episode Mr. District Attorney because my guest is Dave Sullivan, the Northwestern District Attorney for Hampshire, Franklin counties and the town of Athol. He's been at it since 2011. Dave is the chief prosecutor and law enforcement official for 47 communities, leading a team of 31 prosecutors, 50 staff, and 15 police investigators. In addition to prosecuting all criminal offenses, his office promotes and participates in community education and outreach efforts in areas of civil rights, domestic violence, child abuse prevention, consumer protection, internet safety, bullying prevention, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, crimes against children, elders, and persons with disabilities. I don't know how he does his job because I'm tired just from reading all that. Dave, nice to see you. Great to see you I've known you for like maybe forever. And I know you were running for probate when I first met you. I think I interviewed you on the radio. And now, or since then, usually at some event somewhere, you're always doing something nice in the community away from the office. So it's nice to see you.
Great to see you, Dennis. And we go back to 2002 when I was running for the chief administrator job in the probate and family court in Hampshire. So right. It's great to see you again.
Well, it's good to see you. I want to ask you, how did you become DA? Now, most people don't wake up, when they're 18 and say, I think I'm going to be the district attorney. So, and you did a lot of things before. So how did you become the DA?
Well, I'll give you the short answer, and then we can elaborate from there. I was elected by the people of Hampshire and Franklin County in the town of Athol back in 2010, in November of 2010. And it's an elected position, and I think every district attorney around the country, there's over 2,000 of us that represent different counties. We have two counties. We're kind of unusual because of just having two counties. Most only have one. So the people every 4 years make a decision on who their district attorney is, and I'm now in my fourth term, so I'm very lucky to be in that position to make fundamental changes to our criminal justice system and to help people.
How long is each term?
4 years.
4-year term. Wow. All right. Well, is most of what you do, when I think of district attorney, I think of crime, okay? And I didn't realize till I read some of your background information how much your office was involved in. I was like really surprised. But are you in the court, or is it mostly administrative stuff? Give us an idea of what your days are like and what you do.
Every day is different. The role of the district attorney is to be the chief prosecutor, to make sure that the cases that come to court, whether it's district court or superior court, are handled properly. And in that way, I'm the administrator. I would have to say I'm the conductor of the orchestra to make sure that they have the resources, they have the staff, they have everything they can have to make sure that a case is handled efficiently and fairly, and to make sure that the victim's rights are protected, but also the defendant's rights are protected, because we have a constitutional duty to make sure that they get a fair and square deal. So I'd say 85% of what we do is related to those criminal prosecutions, making a decision whether we go forward, whether we don't, whether we have a diversion. And then I would say the other 15% involves prevention of crime, to make sure that we're doing the right outreach to prevent elders from getting scammed through our consumer protection unit, making sure that schools are safe. We have a safe school protection team to make sure civil rights, that people's rights are protected, particularly in the juvenile realm, to make sure that nobody gets bullied to the point where they don't have that protection in the schools. So we do a lot of that community engagement. We participate in dozens of outreach activities, and we participate in a number of coalitions. The Opioid Task Force of Franklin County and the Hampshire Hope are all about addressing the opioid epidemic.
Are you in the courtroom at all? Do you do any courtroom work?
Very, very rarely. I'll participate in a grand jury, but for the most part, I'm just the administrator.
There's so much in the news, and I'm not going to get into the national political stuff. I don't want to do that for this podcast, but I thought it might be interesting for the average person, because ever since all of that court stuff with the politicians running for president is in the news and has been in the news, give us an idea of how it works when there's a crime in the process, and how the indictment works, and how somebody gets charged. Give us an overview of how that works, so the average guy can know. And we're not talking about necessarily big-time politicians or Washington, but everyday people that get into trouble. What's the process like?
So most cases originate with that local police department or the Massachusetts State Police. Those are our two law enforcement entities that handle crime. So, in the town of Athol, there's a Athol police force, but there's also the state police that work within all 47 of these communities. So charges are brought. A crime is alleged. Offender is apprehended or turns themselves in or is notified that there's a criminal offense. And so it starts the process. And it's called an arraignment because you're brought into court and you read your charges. And you're appointed an attorney if you can't afford one, which is the majority of folks that are represented by very, very good public defenders and bar advocates. Mm-hmm. And so from there, the process starts. And at that point, if not a little bit before, our team of folks that are called victim witness advocates that work hand in hand with the prosecutor, they help the victims of crime negotiate the system, because most victims don't know anything about the court protocol or where they need to go or when they need to go, and their voice needs to be heard throughout the case until it's resolved. So we kind of work in tandem. We have the victim advocates, and then we have the public defenders or bar advocates that move a case forward with our prosecutors. So they get arraigned, and usually there's a number of procedures that happen. It could be pretrial conference to make sure that they get all the materials that we have called discovery, to make sure they have the police reports, the videotapes, so they can represent their client in an effective and meaningful way. And then after a pretrial conference, the defendant may allege through his or her attorney that there was a constitutional violation, that they searched, say, the vehicle or the house or something along those lines in an unconstitutional way. So there'll be a motion or a hearing that takes place, and that is decided. Usually it's it's all constitutional. It goes forward, and then a trial is set. And I'd say 95% of the cases that we handle, it's usually a disposition that goes before a judge, that there's a settlement. It could be unagreed. A defendant can go unagreed with his or her attorney, or it's agreed. So usually about only 5% of the cases that we handle go forward for a trial. And most trials are jury trials. And that is, so misdemeanors, and actually I should say felonies that aren't punishable by 5 years or more, that are punishable by houses of correction, sentences of 2.5 years or below, those go in district court. So I would say 90% of all our cases are handled in the district court. And we have 4 district courts in our jurisdiction. We have Orange District Court, Greenfield District Court, those are the 2 Franklin County ones, and then we have Eastern Hampshire, which is located in Belchertown, and then we have Northampton District Court, which is in the county seat of Northampton.
Mm-hmm. I once had jury duty, or at least I was called, and never got out of the jury, but the judge came down, and he said he thanked everybody that wasn't called and said, but because you were here, some cases probably were settled, but you were ready to go. So that was his point of view. Thank you for being here. And when he first got up, Dave, probably wouldn't even use the language he used. I was surprised, but he said, you probably said when you saw the jury notice,
Yep.
and everybody laughed, and he was in his robe, and he said that everybody cracked up, but he said, thank you for being here. I want to go back a little bit to when you're talking about charges because of all the stuff we've heard about on the national big level. Is it a big decision in your office how to charge somebody? I mean, is it a difficult thing? Do you sometimes you're not sure? What's the process like? And do you have not second thoughts, but is it a difficult decision?
Well, usually the matters that happen, they come in through district court, and the police have witnessed a crime. They've witnessed a car bobbing and weaving along the highway, or there's been a domestic violence case where they've gotten there and the victim of domestic violence is bleeding or bruised. So it's out of a result of witnesses and people that can put those things together. So that's the majority of the cases we handle. Some, like our economic crimes, could be forgery, could be cases that involved forensic matters like computer crimes, child pornography. These take more investigative tools that we have to spend our time. So our state troopers, our local detectives, they've got to work on a case to make sure they have the right person that they're going to accuse. They want to make sure that all that is taken care of in a proper way. So that's a smaller number of cases, but they take time. It could be anywhere from 2 months to 2 years. Right. And so not everything percolates up to the top. But what happens is for those major felonies, they leave district court because a grand jury is assembled for each county, 23 individuals from the public that decide is there probable cause. Is it likely or reasonably suspicion that this person committed the crime. And so that's very important. So they have to put that seal of approval for us to bring a case into Superior Court. So it's got to go through that review. And we prepare our cases very, very, very well for that proceeding because we want to make sure that that victim of crime and the community is protected, because those could be aggravated assaults, they could be rapes, they could be murders, they could be any type of serious crime that we bring before the grand jury. And then if they do an indictment, what we call an indictment, like a charge, then it goes forward in Superior Court, and it starts the whole process over again.
What's the cliche, though? You can indict a ham sandwich. Is that the line that people use?
Absolutely ridiculous. We cannot do that. I mean,
you don't like a ham sandwich, Dave? What do you want to?
There are two major cases in Massachusetts, and that is the McCarthy decision that says you need to be prepared. You need to present evidence. You need to make sure that you have a sound case. And the other one is Odell. And you can't put extraneous things in that aren't important to the case that may prejudice that grand jury against that offender or accused. So it's very important. I know it's a cliche. It's absolutely inaccurate. Maybe in some jurisdictions in another part of the country, maybe it is. But in our jurisdiction, we take it very seriously because we never want to charge anybody with that type of felony going forward unless we truly believe that they're the person that committed that crime.
Here's a loaded question. Does the justice system in the big picture, or let's say Hampshire, Franklin County, Athol, do you think that the justice system, for the most part, gets it right? Now, I know you're probably going to say, I have to ask the question, but you're going to say yes, right? Or you're not sure? How would you answer that question?
I think we have an imperfect system. Mistakes may be made. That's why we have appeals. That's why we have an appellate court. But the majority, the vast majority, 99.9% of the time, we get it right. We followed the right procedures. We have the right evidence. We've moved forward. So, and we have such a great criminal justice system. You were part of it. The people are the important part of the criminal justice system because we have a jury system. It's the envy of the world. We can have either 6 people on a jury in district court or 12 in superior court. They get it right. They listen to all the evidence. Hey, when did 12 people agree on anything anymore, right?
These days especially, yeah, I guess.
And that's one of the sad parts of the recent case with Donald Trump. And I won't talk about guilt or not, but he's undermined our faith in the judicial system, saying that it's fixed or that there was improper. He helped select that jury. He had that opportunity to knock off anybody for cause, and he had peremptory challenges, which are challenges for no reason he could get rid of people. So he was satisfied with that jury. And in fact, his defense attorney had to stand up and say, we're satisfied. So to undermine that jury does a real disservice to our entire judicial system. It's the cornerstone. Our jury system is the cornerstone of our democracy. And hopefully we will never lose that, right? Because I love the fact that the public, that the people, the citizens, they put their eyes on the evidence, they've heard testimony, they're going to make that decision. And we have the highest standard in the world. It's not more likely or not that he did it. It's not whether it's clear and convincing. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. So if a jury has doubts, if there's one juror that doesn't agree, then the case gets mistried. It has to get tried again.
Right.
So we have such a good system because of our standard of proof that beyond a reasonable doubt is so important to our democracy and our judicial system.
I always thought it would be really interesting to be on a jury. So on one level I say, boy, I'd like to do that. And then I think to myself, I don't think I want to do that. I mean, to me, that would be frightening. Now, they're not all big cases like the national stuff, but I mean, every time somebody makes a decision, it could be a small-time burglary or shoplifting, it affects somebody's life.
But we need people like you. We need everybody to participate. We don't want just, people from 18 to 25. We want everybody in the spectrum, a diversity of people, of thoughts, and of observations. You have lived experience that help form good decisions. And that's so important on a jury, that we have those 12 people, or in district court, 6 people, that collectively, they listen to the judge, they listen to the law, they get instructed on the law, but you're the finders of fact. You're going to make the decision. Is that witness telling the truth? Is that police officer, what he observed, is it accurate? All those things. But it's your judgment. It's we the people, and I really mean it in the most sincere way. There's no better system in the world. And mind you, things get, prosecutions have been made that just didn't have the right evidence, or that there was a corrupt entity. Could have been that police officer, or it could have been a witness. Yeah, we don't always get it right. But through the appellate process, and we actually have a conviction integrity unit that looks at cases and makes sure that when people raise those claims of innocence, that they're investigated.
Now, how do you, in your own life, well, let me put it this way. It seems to me doing what you do, and some of the people your office comes in contact with are not nice people. Do you become cynical? And when you walk away from the office, every time I've been around you, you're very upbeat. You have a good sense of humor. I always enjoy seeing you, not because I have to say that. It's true. I ran into you a while back at Big Brothers Big Sisters. You were giving away some medals for people that ran, and you were having a wonderful time. But I've always enjoyed knowing you. But you're in a very negative. Crime is not fun. How do you deal with that in your own brain when you go home at night?
You have to have empathy. You have to have sadness when you deal with these cases, particularly the serious crimes against children, against elders, against women and men, and domestic violence. But I have a lot of hope. And really, I start with juvenile court. That's the court of hope. It's how we change people's behavior so we prevent people from becoming victims of crime. And hope goes all the way through victims. It's about making sure that they get justice, so that they feel that somebody's addressed that wrong that happened to them, whether that was an assault or a robbery, or it could have been a consumer scam. So I approach it from a very hopeful, optimistic point of view. So yeah, there is negativity, but there's so many good people that I work with. We work as a team. There's no case that gets handled without a number of people being involved, from the police officer to our staff members, to our prosecutors, to the judges and the defense attorneys. So I think when I look at the Hampshire, Franklin, I look at just good people are involved. And that means the jurors all the way down to the staff people and the people in the courts. We've always had very collegial bar associations, Hampshire and Franklin, that bring goodwill to their jobs, and they do it with professionalism. And so I'm gifted with just a great group of people. It's, we have 31 attorneys, 50 plus staff members, and our state troopers. It's about doing the public good, and it's such an opportunity for me, and a gift to be able to work on programs that help people, whether it's somebody with an addiction, or it could be a veteran that's down and out and was involved in a crime, to get them back onto their feet.
Because I want to talk about some of the programs now that we dissected your life. And I know you went to UMass too, and you also went to law school where?
I went to Northeastern Law School. Right. Yeah, I lived in Framingham and I commuted into Northeastern.
Now that we went back and did This Is Your Life, Dave Sullivan, okay, now that we did that a little bit, let's talk about some of the individual programs. You mentioned some of them, but pick some that you think people might not know about, or you want to. I'll let you pick a couple of the programs, because I tell you, I was really shocked when you sent me the information. I'm just an average guy. I read the newspaper. I knew nothing about your office, and you sent me all this stuff. And I'm serious. My mouth, I said, I was talking to myself in front of the computer. I actually said, wow. I mean it. I actually did at home. I said, wow, I didn't. And I think I talked to myself. I'm talking to myself. They say if you talk to yourself, you meet a better class of person. I don't know if that's true or not, but I was talking to myself. I said, wow, I actually said in front of my computer, I don't believe they do all this stuff. And I was like shocked. And I bet most people don't know probably 80% of what you do beyond being the DA.
Well, we have a very, very robust DA's office, and I'm proud to say that we have some of the best programs in the state. We have a veterans treatment court where veterans are referred to this court. They can be from Franklin County, Hampshire County, and Hampden County, and it meets down in Holyoke District Court, where we get, and these are serious crimes, where we help them get treatment for addiction, for mental health, and they're put on a very strict 18-month program. They're not held or anything, but it's so important that we're getting our veterans back on their feet, that they're getting a new life, that they're getting the treatment that was neglected or wasn't given to them from the beginning. So I'm very proud of that program. It's been going for, I think, 10 years now. Yeah, they just celebrated their 10th. But we've also worked with other veterans just to refer them to the right resources. And we had a whole Veterans Justice Partnership that really ran very well for a number of years before we had the treatment. The other programs that we have, it's about getting to the root causes of crime. And I can tell you right now, the houses of correction, Franklin House of Correction, Hampshire House of Correction, 75 to 80% of the incarcerated individuals committed crimes because of their addiction to alcohol or drugs, or mental health issues that brought them into the system where they hurt somebody, maybe an assault, or both. And many times people have trauma in their lives. So we've really made it a point, a very important point, to work with our task force on opioids and substance use disorders to make sure that we get people the help they need, to get them out of that cycle of addiction and poverty and crime. And so we really have put a lot of resources. Our drug diversion and treatment program that we started about 10 years ago is just a great program. So we divert them out of that prosecution track and we get them into a treatment track. As a defense attorney, criminal defense attorney for 16 years, I did that in addition to other things in private practice. I realized that people were waiting 6 months or a year before they'd get a treatment program because they were waiting to dispose of their cases. This is a way that we could, from the day of arraignment, or even before arraignment, if we can catch it soon enough, we can get them into a treatment program. We can get them a specialist that works with them, a mentor. Our Veterans Court has veteran mentors that keep them on track, to make sure that they do the work that they need to do to get into recovery. And so recovery is so important. And I think that's why we have, for our two counties, some of the lowest crime rates in Massachusetts. We have the lowest incarceration rates in Massachusetts.
I mentioned to somebody I was going to interview you, and they said, well, ask about Franklin County and their drug problem and fentanyl. And that's a big problem in the county. They said, I wasn't even aware of it. I knew it. I've heard a little bit on the news, but I don't know a lot about it. So what would you say about that?
In 2013, there's always been a heroin issue in our society, and it goes back to the 1960s, really. I mean, the men and women that went to Vietnam came back with these addictions, and they had people that were supplying the opium and the heroin there. So it's been a societal problem, but it really erupted in our rural counties, Hampshire and Franklin County, around 2013, to the tune of, say there was like 3 or 4 between both counties a year in opioid overdoses. It went up to 40 and 60 people that were dying in these two counties. So it really took on a really strong presence in our community. And it impacts, these addictions impact everybody, from loved ones to people that they work with, all these things, because people are dying, and they still are. And what happened with heroin was about 5 years ago, it transitioned from no longer being heroin to fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid, much stronger. They say 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin, which is hard to believe. So that was killing people, because what happens when you take an opioid, it relaxes you, and it tells the body, oh, relax. And it actually tells the brain, stop breathing. So people go into asphyxia, cardiac arrest. So we've really made a point, because we're members of 2 task forces, the opioid task force of Franklin County and North Quabbin, and also the Hampshire HOPE, which is the opioid task force for Hampshire County. So we're very involved in making sure that there's harm reduction. For example, we took a very strong stance on making sure that Narcan got to all our police departments. Now it's getting into the community. There's Narcan areas. We want to save lives so that they can get treatment. You can't help people in treatment if they're not alive. So it's one of those points of emphasis that I think is very important.
What are some of the other programs that you want to mention? How about consumer protection? Is that something you're involved in a lot?
We're very proud of our consumer protection. That has been in existence for over 40 years. It got started by John Callahan when he was a district attorney way back when in the Attorney General's office. So we work, we represent Hampshire, Franklin County, and a good part of Worcester County, the rural part, to make sure that people can call with questions about consumer disputes. It could be a used car. It could be a dishwasher that didn't work. All those things, and we help mediate the claims between the business and the consumer. And at the same time, we do a lot of outreach to the community, particularly elders, to warn them about these consumer ripoffs, these scams. So we really want to make it a point. But we handle over 2,000 calls a year just in consumer protection alone.
I've got like several questions, but I always like to ask, is there something you haven't heard me ask that you wish you could express?
You've covered a lot of ground, Dennis. We could keep going, but you shoot away with another question.
Okay, well, before I do that, before we talk about another question, I got to tell you about something that you might not know about, but you might get a kick about. I called this episode Mr. District Attorney, and I realized somewhere in the 50s, I don't know how I knew this, but there was a show. First, in the 40s, there was a radio show.
There was.
Called Mr. District Attorney. And then in the 50s, I think in 1950-something, there was a TV show. And I happened to look at your mission statement when you sent me a bunch of information. Your mission statement says to seek justice for all, pursuit of the truth, and justice protection of the innocent and safety of the public. Basically, I think that's your mission statement.
Yeah.
Well, on the opening, I think of the TV show, part of your mission statement is in their opening. I mean, obviously, you had nothing to do with it, but when I read that, I went online because I remembered Mr. District Attorney. And then I looked last night. I actually went and I found an old TV episode of Mr. District Attorney. So I thought that was really interesting that your mission statement was on their intro, although they're not connected. You had nothing you weren't even around then.
Yep. Well, one of the first things we did when I got elected was to make a mission statement. So everybody in the organization knows what our mission is. You may think of it like yourself. You didn't exactly know everything about a DA's office, but our mission statement is so important. And I go back to it on a regular basis. I said, are we doing justice for all? Are we making sure the community is safe? Are we making sure that victims' rights are protected? And also, are defendants getting a fair deal? And naturally, on sentencing, the judge does it, but we have a lot of influence over making a recommendation of what we think is appropriate. And the vast majority of cases don't involve incarceration. They involved probation and helping people get on their feet and changing their behavior, whether it's violent behavior or whether it's addressing that addiction that brought them in, whether it was alcohol or drugs. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that the justice system in Hampshire, Franklin County, and that little town of Athol up north, that everybody feels that our DA's office is responsive to them, but also that we're being proactive, that we're keeping our communities safe and healthy and making sure that everybody feels that it's their DA's office, because it is. I'm elected by the people. I'm accountable, and that's why we do our annual report. And I'll just give one plug. If you go to northwesternda.org, you can download our annual report. So we've been doing it. We're the only DA's office that I know of in the country that does an annual report. Mm-hmm. So, and I thought, let's be accountable. Let's tell people what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then people can give their. And I have a citizens advisory board. Actually, we're meeting today, and people from a cross section of the community, from teachers, therapists, you name it. We have a group of people that advises me and tells me, what is important to the community. So, mm-hmm. And I'm very, very indebted to them. Some of our best ideas have come out of the community.
Mm-hmm. Well, if somebody's listening today and they find your comments interesting, and I'm sure they will, but if they have a problem, what do? Do they just call your office?
Sure.
I mean, of all these things you've talked, I've already listed all the things that you've done in programs. So what's the process? Somebody calls up and says, I have a problem with X. What's the best way for somebody to get help?
Well, I think the first of all is go to northwesternda.org. You can see all the services we had, what we can handle. But for reporting a crime, they should just call right to their police department, local police department, or the Mass State Police. They have a number. But, for those things that may be more delicate, that they'd like to talk to us, then we can take those calls. They can call anyone. We have two main numbers, one for Greenfield and one for Northampton. But we have a whole open door policy that we try to hear. And if we can't handle it, because sometimes it's out of our jurisdiction, it could be some federal matter or it could be something unrelated, then we'll make sure that we get them the right resources and they can, take care of their issue, in the appropriate place. And
they just have to call your office, and they can go to the website or give the number. Just give us what's the best telephone number.
413-586-9225.
Okay, and then they'll ask somebody what's going on. Right. So that's terrific. Well, listen, Dave, it's really nice to see you anytime. I always think you're one of the guys with the white hat. The last time I saw you, you had a baseball hat on. I said, but he should have a white hat on because as I mentioned earlier, I think you're one of the good guys, and I really appreciate you being with us today, and I hope people appreciate what you do. And I also hope that if there's somebody listening that has, whether abuse or of some kind of abuse or kid problems, whatever, you mentioned all these things, I hope they reach out because, as you've expressed, you can do something, you can help people, and you can make a change.
And there's hope for every victim of crime. There's people there to help you get involved. If you have to go to court, that's great. But to guide you the right way so that you can get the help you need.
Mr. District Attorney, thank you for joining us. So glad you're with us for Backyard Oasis.
Thank you, Dennis.
This concludes today's podcast. We're always looking for new ideas, so feel free to reach out to Judy Raper, Associate Dean of Community Engagement at Greenfield Community College, at 413-775 1819 if you have an idea you'd love to share. Special thanks to the creators of Backyard Oasis, Denise Schwartz, Chad Fuller, Dennis Lee, and Christine Copeland. Have a great day.